While stumbling from deadline to deadline, cash-strapped developer China Evergrande has once again averted a destabilizing default at the very last minute. The several bondholders are said to have received their overdue coupon payments made at the end of a 30-day grace period that ended yesterday. Evergrande shares rose sharply on the news, as did other Chinese developers. The sector gained extra momentum from growing speculation that authorities are easing up on the sector. Hello, Min Min joins us live. Well, Min Min, is China softening its crackdown on property developers? And is it bending its 3 red lines criteria that's implemented to deleverage the industry?
Well, no official announcements made yet at this point, but a lot of speculation on the ground, especially after it was reported that state-owned enterprises asked regulators to loosen the 3 red lines policy that restricts debt ratio for property developers. One local news outlet reported that the authorities is likely to loosen controls for firms to raise money by issuing local currency notes, but still no sign that they would repeal the 3 red lines completely, given that President Xi has made deflating the Chinese property bubble a key part of his campaign to reduce capitalist excesses, directing regulators to tighten the screws on property lending and announcing a new property tax trial for the next 5 years. But still, what they could do is to ease the property crunch and the credit crunch by some degree, and that's exactly the kind of signal they're sending with state media. Several local media outlets carrying reports that bank lending to property developers increased in October, although they did not reveal by how much. But that's still a positive sign for the sector. And in yet another unusual move, the People's Bank of China released October mortgage lending figures, showing that it increased by $73 million. Now, that's very unusual. The bank usually does not reveal monthly data, so that's another intentional move by the government to send a signal that they're easing the credit crunch. Now, property watchers tell me that they believe this is the bottoming out of the property market and that it could only gradually rebound from here. Let's have a listen to what one expert has to say.
The PBOC governor came through and specifically said that he thought that Evergrande is more or less containable, and so he's not thinking it as a systemic risk. One thing that people need to keep in mind is the people who have the biggest vested interest is those who are the biggest owners of land, and it's the Chinese government. And what's actually occurring is capital is not flowing, and that's an issue, not from the liquidity from the PBOC point of view.
So what do we know of the latest on Evergrande now that it's reportedly averted an official default at the very last minute?
Well, it's the 3rd time in a month that Evergrande made a very last-minute payment at the end of its 30-day grace period. So it narrowly avoided formal default, which would have been disastrous if it triggered cross-default provisions on its other US dollar bonds. But still, remember, it has $300 billion in liabilities, and there are still outstanding payments, looming deadlines in December with $255 million payments worth of payment deadlines coming up, and it's unclear whether they would be able to pay up, and it's likely that their debt is going to be restructured at some point. The question is when and how. But more urgently, though, investors are now shifting their focus to the second largest borrowers from the international high yields market, and that is another real estate firm called Kaiser, which has 2 crucial payment deadlines coming up tomorrow. Earlier this week, they have already pleaded with investors for a payment extension after they have failed to make payments on a wealth investment product that they guaranteed. So a lot of anxiety all around, and the question is whether Kaiser will be the next company to face an imminent default. Liz?
Thanks for that. Lo Min Min reporting live in Fujian.